We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Amid Beis Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 30b. On the previous summit, the Gemara was discussing whether the Mishnah is in accordance with the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah says that if a person takes his tevin or his kash, his straw and his hay, and he puts it out in the Rosh Hashanah, that people and animals should step on it and it should turn into zevel, it should turn into manure, and it causes damage. So the Mishnah said, you're chayiv to pay. Rabbi Yehuda seemed to say the opposite, that if a person is allowed to do that, a person is allowed to put these items out into the Rosh Hashanah, it seems that he does not have to pay for the damage. And Rav Ashi now answers, Tivno v'kasho tanan. In the Mishnah, we're talking specifically about straw and hay, mishum de misharke, because those are smooth and they cause more damage. People slip on them, and therefore there you're actually chayiv to pay. But in Rabbi Yehuda's case, that is not the situation. That was talking about actual zevel. Rashi explains, Tivno v'kasho tanan de mechayiv. If a person puts his straw and his hay out in the public thoroughfare, then he's chayiv if it causes damage. The adayin lo nasu zevel, because they still have not become the zevel. They're not yet manure. V'kashem heim, and therefore they're hard. Umachlikin behem, and people slip on them. V'chi kamer Rabbi Yehuda bezevel kamer. And when Rabbi Yehuda said that the person is potter when he has permission, that's when he's putting the zevel out there. The motzi adam zivlo sheino noach lahach lekol. That we say again, if a person is in a situation where he's allowed to put the zevel in the Rosh Hashanah, and that's not so slippery, so in that situation you're not going to be chayiv. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Kol hakodem ben zacha. Again, if someone puts his straw or his hay out in the Rosh Hashanah, so any damage that it does, he's chayiv to pay for. And also, Kol hakodem ben zacha, anyone who takes it is able to be zoch, is able to become the owner of those items. And the Gemara says, Rav says, Bein begufan, bein b'shivchan. When we say that anyone who takes it becomes the owner, that's the actual item itself, or any of the improvements that happen to the item. As Rashi says, b'shivchan, b'meshesh, b'ichan, b'rishas rabim. Let's say they improve in rishas rabim, like in the case of the tevin, and in the case of the kash, the improvement would be that it turns into zevel, that it turns into manure that can be used to fertilize. Z'iri Amar, and Z'iri says, b'shivcha, no, the only thing that you can take is, let's say they improve, that the person is able to take. Avalo begufan, but the person can't take the item itself, cannot take possession. And the Gemara says, b'mai kamiflagi, what is the machlokas Rav and Z'iri? Rav savar konsu gufan mishum shivchan. Rav says that there's a fine on the actual item because of the improvement. Just like you can take the improvement, also you can take the actual item from the owner because he put it out there in an inappropriate manner. Z'iri savar lo konsu gufan mishum shivchan. But Z'iri says, no, there is no such knas, so it's impossible for anyone to take the improvement, but you can't take the actual item. And the Gemara continues, Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Hahofech es hagolol b'Rosh Hashanah, if somebody turns over the dung in Rosh Hashanah, v'huzak ben acher, and then someone is damaged by it, chayiv ben nizko, so that person who turned it over is chayiv in any of those damages that it causes. V'ilu kol hakodem zacha lo katani, and whereas in this case it doesn't say anything about anyone who takes it is able to become the owner. As Rashi explains, v'ilu kol hakodem zacha lo katani, mishum de golol zehu reiv, the reason is because golol is already the rei, ve'inu mashbiach b'Rosh Hashanah, it's not going to improve any further. It already is dung and there's nothing more that can happen to it. The mushbach v'yomidu, whatever improvement there was, that already happened. The kashal Rav, now this is difficult according to Rav, because again, according to Rav, you can take the guf, you can take the actual product, or you can take the improvement. According to Z'iri, you can only take the improvement. So according to Z'iri, the Mishnah makes sense. You're not allowed to take the golol at all, because there is no improvement, you can't take anything. Whereas according to Rav, it should have said, in this line in the Mishnah, it should have said, kol hakodem zacha. It doesn't say that, therefore it's a question on Rav. And the Gemara continues, Tana l'reisha v'uadin l'seifa. The Gemara says, no, it already said that line in the beginning of the Mishnah, therefore we just apply it to the end of the Mishnah. It could be that it should have said that there as well. But the Gemara continues, Vatani Allah, but didn't we learn in a Braisa on this Mishnah to the contrary? Asur and Mishum Gezel, it said it's asur to take it, it's actually Gezel. So it's not true that anyone who takes it is able to take it. It seems to be Gezel, it seems to be stealing. And the Gemara says, Kikotani Asur and Mishum Gezel, no, when we said in the Braisa that it's asur in terms of stealing, Akula Masnisin Koi, it's actually going on everything in the Mishnah. It's not only going on the end of the Mishnah. And what it means is, La'oso Shakadam V'zacha, what it means is, if somebody else took it, because someone is allowed to take possession, once someone takes possession, you can't take it from that person. That's what the Mishnah means to say, or that's what the Braisa means to say when it says on the Mishnah, that if anyone takes it, it's Gezel, it's if you take it from the person who was Zoche. But the Gemara continues, V'lo katani achi, but that's not what it says. T'tanan, because the Mishnah says, Hamotzi tivno v'kashal Rishas Harabim l'zvolim. If somebody puts out his straw in his hay in Rishas Harabim, that it should turn into zevel. V'huzak bohen acher, and then somebody is damaged, chayiv ben isko, so then he's chayiv in any damages. V'chol hakodem bohen zocha, and again, anyone who takes it, the first to take it becomes zocha, he becomes the owner. Umutter mishum gezel, and here we have a clear line of mutter mishum gezel. There's no problem of gezel. It means to say anyone who takes it can take it. And then by golol it says v'ahofech es hagolol l'rishas harabim. Somebody who turns over the golol, the dung in rishas harabim, v'huzak ben acher, and then somebody else is damaged, chayiv. So then again you're chayiv in any damages. V'asur mishum gezel, and there it's asur to steal it. And so therefore it seems like there really is a distinction. And again it's a question according to Rav, because Rav says you can take anything. You can take the guf or the shevach. According to Zeiri though, this makes sense. You're only allowed to take the shevach. You're not allowed to take the guf, and that's why you're not allowed to take it when it comes to golol. And the Gemara continues, Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Golol karamis, are you asking a question from the case of Golol on Rav? There's no question. Davar sheyesh bo shevach kansu gufo mishum shifcha. If you have something which is able to improve, that's where Rav says there's a fine on the guf because of the shevach. That's where Rav says that anyone who takes it is able to take it. That applies to the guf and the shevach. However, davar she'ein bo shevach, but something like golol, where there is no improvement, so lo kansu, so there is no fine, and in that case you wouldn't be able to take it. We wouldn't apply kol hakodim zacha even according to Rav, because it's something that doesn't improve, and therefore you're not allowed to take the guf. And the Gemara continues, Iboy Lahu, they had the following question, L'divrei ha'omer kansu gufan misham shivchan, according to the one who says they impose the fine on the actual product because of the improvement. Meaning according to the position of Rav, that Rav says if someone puts something out in the Rishas Harabim, so then anyone can take that, and that applies both to the improvement and the actual product. So la'alter kansinan, is that fine imposed immediately, meaning even before there's any improvement, anyone is allowed to take the actual product? Or is it only after the product improves, so then we impose the fine, and then we say that the person can take both of the shevach, both of the improvement, and the guf? Meaning to say, at what point in time can you take the guf, the actual product according to Rav? Can it be right at the outset before there's any improvement, or is it only after there is some improvement of the item? And the Gemara says, Tashma, come and hear the following proof, Midukairin on Golol, because one of the questions we asked on Rav was from the case of Golol. The case of Golol is the case of the dung. There's no improvement whatsoever, and apparently we're assuming in Rav that the person can take the guf even though there was no improvement. Apparently you're able to take it lialter. The fine is imposed lialter. And the Gemara says, V'tizbra, but is it logical to say this? Ki Irin on Golol, we only asked the question by Golol. That was only true, Mekame Delishni Rav Nachman. That was before Rav Nachman answered that question. Meaning to say, Rav Nachman then answered the question that the whole halacha doesn't apply by Golol, because in something where there is no improvement, in something where the concept of improvement doesn't even exist, so there we say Rav would certainly admit that you can't take anything. Levazar Deshani Rav Nachman, once Rav Nachman answered that Golol is a total exception, Mi'ikol Amirma Golol Klal, is there any way to ask any question from Golol? Of course not. So now we really still do have this question of whether it's la'alter or not. As Rashi explains, Levasar Deshani Mikal Mimra Golol Klal, once we answer the question, there's nothing to ask from Golol. V'hashda de Kimlan the time of the Knasim Mishum Shavachu, meaning now that we know that the whole reason for the Knas is because of the improvement, and therefore it doesn't apply to Golol at all because there is no improvement possible. Mibai, so now we do have a legitimate question. Ila Alter Kanis is the fine immediate. You could take the guf immediately even before the improvement by something that does improve. Okimaisi Shavach, or do you have to actually wait until there is some improvement to actually take the item itself? And the Gemara continues, Leime ketanoi, let us suggest that this is a machlokas tanoi, meaning whether the person can take the guf or only the shevach is actually a machlokas tanoim. Shtar shekosabo ribis, it says, let's say you have a shtar, and there was interest written in the shtar that of course is not allowed, that is a prohibition. Konsano so there's a fine. Ve'eno go v'lo asakaran v'lo asaribis, so the lender is not allowed to collect the principal, and he cannot collect the interest. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. But the Chachamim say, Govas HaKaren, a person is allowed, the lender is allowed to collect the principal, Avolo Esaribis, but he's not allowed to collect the interest. And so the Gemara says, Leima Rav De'amar Rabbi Meir, let us suggest that Rav follows Rabbi Meir, just like Rav says that when the person puts the item out into Rishos Harabim that he's not supposed to put there, so then anyone can take it, that goes both on the improvement and the principal. That's the same as Rabbi Meir. The person put in the ribis, which the person should not have put into the shtar, and now he can't collect the ribis and he can't collect the principal. Uzeiri Damar Karabanan, and Zeiri will follow the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say that the lender still is allowed to collect the principal, just like Zeiri says that not anyone can take the improvement improvement, but anyone is not able, people are not able to take the principle. That seems to be exactly the same, again, as the Chachamim, Ziri and the Chachamim are similar. And the Gemara says, Amar Lach Rav, Rav will say to you, I can really follow even the Rabbanan. Adkan lo kamri Rabbanan hasam ela keren to vehetera. The Rabbanan over there say that the lender is allowed to collect the principal because there was nothing usser about the principal. You're allowed to lend money and collect it back. There's nothing wrong. Aval hacha, but over here, when we're talking about putting something into the Rosh Hashanah that causes damage, keren gufa kamazik, the keren itself is causing the damage, and therefore it makes sense to say that anyone who takes the keren as well is allowed to take that. Uzeiri Amar Lach, and Zeiri will say to you, Anodi Amri Afil Rabbi Meir, I can follow even Rabbi Meir. Adkan lo kamar Rabbi Meir Hasam. Rabbi Meir only said that when it comes to the case of the ribbis, the lender is not allowed to take the keren as well. He said Hasam over there, Alad Mishas Ksiva, David Leishuma, because from the time of the writing you already violated the Isser. You did this evaluation and you put an interest. Aval Hacha, but over here, Miyemer Damazik, there was no Isser committed yet. You put stuff out in the Rosh Hashanah, but who says the damage will actually happen? The real prohibition is just with the damage, and so therefore in this situation, Zeiri can say, even Rabbi Meir would agree that we're not going to allow anyone to just take the principle, but that only applies to the improvement. And the Gemara continues, Lema Kahani Tanoi, let us suggest that the Machlokas Rav and Zeiri is the same as the following Machlokas Tanoim. Hamotzi Tivno V'kashal Rosh Hashanah L'zvolim, if somebody puts his straw and his hay into Rosh Hashanah, then it should turn to fertilizer. V'huzak Ben Acher, and someone gets damaged, Chai Ben Isko is Chai to pay for the damage, as we said. V'cholak Kodem Ben Zoch, and anyone who takes that Tevet and Kash becomes the owner. V'asurin Mishum Gezel, and it's prohibited to take it. It's considered to be Gezel, it's considered to be stealing. The Gemara will ask, that seems to be a contradiction. You just said that anyone could take it. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Kala Mekalkalin Rosh Hashanah, many of these things that do damage and they're placed in Rosh Hashanah, Biziku, when they do damage, Chayav and L'shalim, the person has to pay. V'cholak Kodem Ben Zachu Mutar Mishum Gezel, anyone who takes it becomes the owner, and there's no problem of stealing, there's no problem of Gezel in that case. And so the Gemara asks, as we said, Hagufa Kasha, that's an internal contradiction within the Tana Kamma of this Brisa. Amr Kolakodem and Zach. On the one hand, you're saying anyone can take it. V'hadr Kamar Asur Mishum Gezel, and then you're saying that it's Gezel. It's considered stealing, and not anyone can take it. Elalav Hachi Kamar. So the Gemara says, isn't the Brisa saying as follows? The Tana Kamma is saying, V'cholakodem ben Zacha b'shivchon. Anyone who takes the improvement, that's okay to take. V'asur Mishum Gezel agufon. But it's also to steal the actual item. That would seem identical to what Zeiri said. V'yasser Rav Shimon Gamliel l'meimer. And then Rav Shimon Gamliel is coming and saying, Afilu gufa nami, no, even the item itself, not only the improvement, even the item itself, kol hakodem ben zacha, anyone can take it. And so therefore Rav Shimon Gamliel would seem to be following Rav. And the Gemara says, L'zeiri vadai tanohi. According to Zeiri, who says you can't take the principle, it certainly is a machlokas tanoim. Rav Shimon Gamliel certainly does not follow Zeiri, because Rav Shimon Gamliel seems to say it's mutter to take everything that goes on the shevach and goes on the guf. But l'Rav milema tanohi. But according to Rav, do we have to say it's a machlokas tanoim? Clearly, Rav Shimon Gamliel is going like Rav. He says, Kol hakodem zachum mutar mishum gezel, seems to be you could take everything. But the question is, the Tana Kamma, is that really against Rav? And the Gemara says, Amar lach Rav, Rav will say to you, to kuli alma kansu gufon mishum shivchon. It could be everybody here in this brisa would agree there's a fine on the guf because of the shevach, you could take everything. However, what does the Tana Kamma mean when they seem to be restricting what you can take? What they're arguing about, everybody agrees that's the halacha, but the question is, do we teach it publicly? Tana Kamma is saying we don't teach such a halacha publicly that you can also take the guf. The Itbar, because it was stated, Rav Huna Amar Rav, Rav Huna says that Rav says halacha, that is the halacha. V'yein morenkein, but we don't teach that publicly. Rav Ada Barava, Rav Ada Barava says halacha morenkein. That's the halacha, and we even teach it publicly. So there is such a machlokas, and therefore it could be, again, Rav will say everybody agrees, technically speaking, you could take both the shevach and the guf. It's just a question whether we teach it publicly. But the Gemara says, Ini, is that really true? Rav Huna afker chushli, but Rav Huna, he publicly said that the chushli, that's referring to kind of barley, he said that's considered hefker, anyone can take it. Sounds like he taught it publicly. Rav Huna just said ein morin kain. Rav Ada Barava afker, and Rav Ada Barava also, he was mafkir an item. Rashi says afker chushli, what is that referring to? So orin kalufin sheshatach ish echad b'rishas harabim. These were barleys that were placed by a certain person, spread in the rishas harabim kadesh sheyisyavshu, in order that they dry out. V'ivkir and Rav Huna. Rav Huna said he put it into the rishas harabim appropriately. So Rav Huna said that they're going to be hefker, anyone can take it. V'hora shakodem and zachi publicly taught that anyone who takes it becomes the owner. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph.